for the quorum.
And we need him for quorum.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, who are we missing?
Dennis.
And Stephanie, I'm not sure if you were copied. Kathy, the recording secretary, is on vacation and
Yes.
out of town, so she will try to join in, but if not, make sure we have the recording for her. And
It is. Yep, it is recording.
I'm sure ECAT is as well.
Yep, Joe Berman is here.
Perfect.
Wow, this is the quietest recorded CPC meeting ever.
Right?
Don't get used to it.
Just got a long,
Really?
just got a longer fuse. That's all.
We're all waiting with bated breath for Dennis to join.
Up there he is. Hold on. I say that like everybody has a choice.
You can exhale, I'm here.
You read the room well, Dennis. You read the room well. All right, we'll get started then. So in keeping with remote meeting procedures, this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board commission members will be remote. Remote attendance shall count toward quorum. Meeting may be broadcast live and be recorded on ECAT. With that, I will take a roll call going in order on my screen. Al Benson.
Present.
John Ventresco.
Present.
Ed Hands.
Present.
Dennis Sheedy.
Present.
And Tom Broussard is present as well. 5 out of 9 gives us quorum. So with that, we can dive right in. Team, you most likely realized that this meeting, I appreciate the effort that Wayne, Stephanie, and council put in. So we have a material amount of executive session minutes. We have been holding them largely because they dealt with 2 issues, one of which has been resolved, one of which is still ongoing. And so in order to publish said minutes, we did receive approval to redact the issue that is not resolved and still under discussion. And we are able now to release the information of the executive minutes that pertains to what we've called the island property. I think we also learned as a best practice that we will most likely, when we enter executive session, have 2 distinct periods of executive session, if that's the right way to do it. So that way we can either release the minutes for one item and not have to worry about redacting on a go forward basis. But again, credit to Wayne. So with that, we have, I would take a motion to accept and release as redacted the executive session minutes of February 11th, March 18th, April 8th, July 8th, September 9th, October 14th, November 18th, all of 2021, January 13th, February 10th, and March 10th of 2022, with the understanding that once the additional issue is resolved, then we would release the executive minutes again for that particular matter.
Yeah, move it.
So that's John and who else?
Dennis.
Dennis, thank you. So going around the order, Al.
I found one small item on March 10th. The members, there's a spacing issue you might want to look at, or somebody might want to look at before they're released.
A spacing issue.
All the members don't line up. One of the lines is off.
Got
It
it.
just needs to be registered to the right.
We can take care of that.
Okay, it's not a big deal.
So as
With that,
discussed
I
by Al, with the adjustment that Al recommended. Good. Al, I. John.
Ventresco, aye.
Ed.
No.
No, like you're abstaining, or just no, you don't want to release them?
I don't want to release the minutes of September 9th, March 18th, or October 14th, which are so heavily redacted to make no sense at all.
Got it.
I mean, it's like you printed black pages, and I would just rather hold those until we had some resolution rather than put them out with no information.
Fair. So that's a no. Dennis?
Can we revisit the motion to take Ed's point into hand? Because I can't, one of the sessions, there's absolutely nothing on. It's completely redacted.
Right. So I'm flexible if you want. I think we have to follow through in the vote because we've already entered into it officially. I think I see the point, but while I don't see any harm also in releasing it, I see no value, but I see no harm. So if
I'm just concerned that people may confuse those with, federal indictment letters, and we don't want to have that happen.
fair, I think that's a fair comment. So Dennis, oh, sorry, Stephanie, did you want to say something?
Well, I was going to say, so the motion was made, the motion was seconded. You can make a motion to amend the vote, the motion.
I think, well, I appreciate that, Stephanie. If Dennis wants, so I guess where I was going with it is if we finish the vote, Dennis votes no, I'm going to vote yes, we'll release them as is. I'm not too concerned about conspiracy theory, but I don't want to, I'm not trying to take away from the committee, but a motion was made, it was seconded, and a vote began. And we're 3/5 through the vote. I'm not sure if that's the right time for the last two people to make an updated motion, but
I think under Robert's Rules of Order, the person who made the
Motion which was
recommendation,
me.
can take it back.
got it. So I think, I guess I don't want to fall on a sword and would love to move the meeting forward. If the person who made the motion feels like we have to amend the motion to remove pages that are redacted that don't add value, but I would argue don't harm much, they can make that motion.
Well, the person who made the motion was me, but I'm going to move forward with you, Tom, and yes.
And I'll vote yes too. Knowing full disclosure, I agree, Ed, maybe in the future, when we have this situation, Steph and Wayne, the learning is if a page is entirely redacted, we won't include it for distribution as redacted. Good point, Ed.
And to clarify, Ed, what were the ones that you were interested in?
September 9th, March 18th, and October 14th. We could just make a motion to take away his red highlight, black highlighter, and just go from there.
He had fun. The only thing I would say on March 18th, there was a conversation about the island.
Correct.
On the second page. So if we're, I would think if it had something to do with that particular project, we'd leave it in. But the takeaway, Wayne and Steph, is if we ever have this situation again and an entire session of minutes is redacted, then to Ed's point, while putting it in might not hurt anybody, it doesn't need to go in.
I agree 100% with that.
Cool. And I would give credit to the excellent black highlighting that was done. Well done, well done. The other thing that we have as well is the minutes from the regular session, voting to accept those on July 13th, 2023. If somebody would like to make a motion.
I've got one small point on the July 13th.
Sure.
The Pond Street, I think it's the second line. There may be a spacing issue. You may want to look at that. It seems a little bit out of touch.
The second line.
It's the Pond Street second. I think it's the second line.
Okay. But it's not substance, it's form, just to clarify.
It's form, yeah, that's right.
Okay.
But if you're putting them out to the public, we should probably try to get the form consistent. So
yeah. Sounds good. So indent the second line, beginning with
Yep.
added.
That's all.
Page
The rest look
27.
good to me.
And I'll make a motion to approve.
Second,
Ed, a lot of responsibility comes. We have just learned that the person who makes the motion has the opportunity to amend as required. So, okay, so that's Mr. Hands, Mr. Benson going around in order on my screen. Al,
yes,
John,
Yes,
Ed,
Yes,
Dennis,
Yes,
and Tom is a yes as well. Thank you all for that. Next up, so Wayne, could you just give us an update on the complete and inactive CPA project outstanding balances?
Yes, so yourself, myself, Stephanie, and Al have been meeting semi-regularly and going through all the projects which have outstanding balances, confirming which ones remain active, which ones are not active or complete, and if there are any that will actually have the money reappropriated. So following Springtown meeting, the town accountant suggested and town meeting voted to reappropriate or reallocate leftover funds from previous from 2012 and 2015 town hall projects for the town hall landscape project, leaving about $2,920.84 to be recaptured. And then above that, you'll see all of those projects, most of which have been completed with some money left over, and a few of which have gone inactive. And we have been in touch with all of the inactive and in fact the complete projects to confirm that they are complete, and if they're inactive, that they are inactive. Informed those applicants that we will be recapturing these unspent funds. And I have also gone through and identified the account numbers for all of these unspent funds, and also the CPA sources in the votes from those town meetings, so that we can provide that to the town accountant so she knows where to recapture and then redeposit these unspent funds.
Awesome. Team, any questions?
yeah, Wayne, are you going
Sure.
to come up with a new line item for the landscaping and include the funds that were transferred at the May meeting?
Not so much. It's there in the reallocated funds, and you'll see the 2,920. And then I do have from the town accountant's recommendation, the account that came from, and she'll know to put that back in.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I may have understood or misunderstood Al's question, because if I understood it, I don't think you answered the question. Will
Okay.
eventually a project go up for, I think, for $60,000 for the town landscaping?
Under
Is that
the
what you were
active,
saying?
Under the active projects, well, I'm sure there's several active projects that are not on there, including the ones that were most recently approved.
Got it.
Since they're so brand new, clearly no, they've not even started, much less spent any money.
Makes sense. So at some point in the future, we'll add those projects, and this would probably be listed for that. Got it.
This will be a line item at that time.
As will all the other ones approved at the most recent town meeting.
Okay.
Right.
All
Makes
right.
sense.
Okay, it's a timing issue.
Perfect. Anybody else? Thoughts, questions, or? Good.
This goes back to the active one. The last one, the infamous Unionville pickleball court. I thought that was going to be closed out after the $50,000 that was earmarked for the wall and the contingency associated with the wall construction, that was going to be returned to available funds, the balance.
I think it will be. It just hasn't been closed out yet.
Yeah, I think almost all of it will, and I think there's still some contingency remaining. I believe there's some chipping on the surface of the court that they'd like to see addressed, and so we
Yeah,
want to give that
so
a good season.
there's some additional work that needs to be done before we close it out officially, Al.
Okay, one question on that, is that maintenance or is that initial construction?
It's initial construction, so it's still under
Okay.
warranty.
All right.
And we're holding contingency funds. They're supposed to be out there now. I've had a couple of calls in. We met in July and the subcontractor was going to come out. So they have been reminded and we need to get them out there.
Okay, so we can rest assured that that will be closed out probably by the next town meeting.
Yes,
Yeah, it should be, right? I think we
Yes.
said that the fencing.
In the
and
May
installation
meeting.
would be in later on, was it October-ish? September, October?
yes. It
So
was-
yeah, we should be able to, Al, assuming the materials arrive on time and installation occurs and we're good to go.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. I do want to thank Wayne, Al, Stephanie for putting this list together. I think it's just good hygiene, so appreciate you all doing that work. Next up, so we have two things to consider. One is for this fall, speaking of the next town meeting, the special town meeting, a draft application review for the Clifford Grant Trail access acquisition. I think we've talked about this, but Stephanie, Wayne, are there any changes, updates, or additional information that we think the team should be aware of?
I think the only update is, I think at the time, we were in the process of drafting a letter to the owners, or we had already sent a letter to the owners making the offer to purchase the parcel of land. And we have since heard from two of the owners that they're amenable. And the third one, who was on vacation when the letter was originally sent and has since returned, has indicated that they have received it and they are looking at the offer and will
Okay.
be getting back to us.
All right. I guess just for the team's edification, so we can at least acknowledge the details that are in the CPA application. The organization requesting it technically is the Conservation Commission. Jen Carlino, thank you so much for being here. The project names the Clifford Grant Preserve Land Protection. The amount requested is $37,000. Non-CPA funds that would also be added to the project is $9,000. That's a total project cost that's currently estimated to be $46,000. The funding category would be open space. I think we are all aware of the circumstance. So we found essentially that the trail access and certain portions of said trail, and I may butcher this explanation, but I'll do my best to be brief, actually landed on private land. The three owners that Stephanie referenced raised their hand on this, and it's been characterized in the application as a friendly eminent domain taking, meaning we're trying to give them value. They're trying to work with us to preserve that particular asset and access to that, to the grant parcel. So I think estimated commencement date would be as soon as the approval is granted. Completion date would be when we're all agreed to the purchase. I feel like I've caught the major points, but Jen, if I missed anything, please don't hesitate to jump in. But I also know that Stephanie and Wayne did a good job of helping the team understand the circumstances at our last meeting.
That was an excellent summary. Thank you.
Perfect. You're welcome. Thank you. Anybody on the team have any questions regarding this? Mr. Hands?
I support the idea 100%. I'm just interested in the appraisal itself of the cost, which seems, given the nature of the parcel, excessive in length and using a lot of inaccurate and speculative stuff that's unnecessary. And I just want to find out how much we paid for that. Because if we got all that material for cheap, that's great. But if we had to pay for it, I'm not sure that I'm real happy with that idea. Again, I do support the project. I think it's a great idea, but 75 pages for 5 acres of landlocked land, including I could list the historical inaccuracies.
Fair, Ed, fair.
Well,
So
thank
I'll
you,
defer.
Thank you, Ed. The appraisal cost 4,500. And sometimes the appraisals are done in such a way that they will meet a state grant if that's something that needs to be pursued. And it's easier to do that the first time than to ask them to go back and amend something.
$4,500 is a very reasonable price to pay for any appraisal these days. Thank you.
Great question, Ed. Dennis, John, Al, any questions? Awesome. So with that, I would take a motion to, so I think it's include and recommend in the town warrant. Stephanie and Wayne is the right language I'm supposed to use. The Clifford Grant Trail access acquisition.
So moved.
Second,
Second,
Dennis and John going around the horn. Al,
Vincent, I.
John,
aye.
Ed,
I,
Dennis,
Aye.
and Tom Broussard is an I as well. Perfect.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jen, and thanks to the team as well for, I guess, working to resolve the issue, much to the betterment of the residents of the community. Next up, so as we talk about our process, which I think is great and appreciate the team supporting it, the letters of interest come first, and then we make recommendations as to whether or not to ask the applicant to issue draft applications for further review, and then final applications where we do a last review and a vote. So appreciate folks joining today to help us with that. There are 3 letters of interest for discussion tonight. The first being community gardens improvement, the second being conservation property signage, and the third being the Ames Free Library main building roof restoration. I think that's last. Ian is going, oh, Ed, sure.
I just want to say that I'm going to mute myself for the discussion of the Agricultural Commission because I'm out on the Agricultural Commission. So let me
Understood.
know when I can come back.
So recuse, you can stay, but you just are recusing yourself from debating and voting?
Yes, I'm just going to mute myself.
Perfect. That sounds great. We don't have to worry about, because we have quorum, we didn't just lose quorum because he has to recuse himself on this, did we?
No, no.
Okay, got it. Just making sure. We could always push it to next week, next meeting. I wouldn't want to, but that sounds great. Just moving ahead through the presentation. Oops, I forgot about the 75 pages of the view.
Although, Tom, I may have spoken too soon. I think you might lose quorum.
I
I have
think
a
you did.
question for,
Yeah.
I would think so.
I think so, yes.
That's
Because
not
we-
true.
No,
This has occurred before in the last 50 years. And as long as you have a quorum to open the meeting, the ruling has always been that the meeting can continue unless someone objects that there's not a quorum.
it's a little different on the planning board side when we have special permits that require a supermajority.
so my understanding has been that folks need to recuse themselves if they or someone in a very close relationship to them receives a financial benefit.
All those
And-
tomatoes, I'm getting all those tomatoes.
Well, I think we can move forward. If we need to, we can add this to the next meeting as well, just to doubly cover ourselves. I think that's fine, but we have people here who probably want to talk about that or this project. The Wheaton Farm Community Garden renovation and expansion category is listed under recreation. I think we all know where it is, Bay Road. The estimated cost is $3,401 for construction materials. Matching funds and sources are that the labor costs will be assumed by the community gardeners. From a narrative statement, the Wheaton Farm Community Garden was built as an Eagle Scout project several years ago for the purpose of providing garden plots for area residents. There's an 8-foot high fence surrounding the garden to prevent deer and other vegetable eating varmints. from helping themselves to our produce. That might include you as well, Ed, apparently with tomatoes. Just throwing it out there. The garden does include a shed, compost bins, and access to water for the gardeners. Garden not only provides opportunities for folks to grow veggies, it creates an ideal setting for building new relationships. And candidly, I think we would all agree is a great asset to the community. The current state is that it's showing its age. It's 9 years old. The posts supporting the fence and compost bins are rotting off. So the plan is to replace those rotted posts with pressure treated posts, redesign the compost bins to allow loader access from outside of the garden, and replace the bin materials with new, more durable materials. Move the south fence to expand the garden, providing additional garden plots, and rebuild the gate, pergola, and bulletin board. And appreciate the applicant putting down in great detail the materials that would be used that add up to the estimated cost of $3,401. And I would ask if there is any other comments that I might have missed that the applicant or Ed, I know you're self-muting yourself, but I'm happy for you to just share facts that anybody could have access to if you felt it would add some color for the rest of us who will opine.
Just two quick things. Our chairman and Jennifer have been very vigorous in the past, 8 or 9 months, replacing the corner posts. So we always like to see some contribution. And we've already replaced the 3 corner posts, and the side tractor gate was replaced by Kevin O'Dwyer, who takes care of our plowing. So I think that's good. And the other thing I noticed tonight in going over the proposal, it specifies ground contact pressure treated. There was a question in the past about pressure treated in an organic garden, but there is pressure treated material now that you can put in ground that doesn't contaminate the ground. So we've looked into that already.
Appreciate that, Ed.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Ed. I didn't know that existed, so that's interesting.
And Matt, again, thank you to Ed's point about the efforts that you all put in down there. I do think it's an incredible asset to the community, and I have friends that use it and they can't say enough about it. So is there anything, Matt, else that you'd want the team to know about?
Well, just at the present time, within the next month, knock on wood and good weather, we're going to have a greenhouse that one of the Boy Scouts is building for his Eagle Scout project. And that's one of the reasons why that's going to be built kind of outside the garden, but still attached to it. And that's why we figured we could expand the garden, which would allow for more gardeners to come in. And, it just all worked out good together. And we do have a 3 to 5 year plan on replacing things. So, hopefully we can get it done. And there's also talk of, in one of the newer plots that would be put in, that it would be a raised garden to help people who, as we get older, can't bend over as well and get up, that they could, utilize the property itself. So we've got plans, and we're hoping that with the expansion, we can do that.
Yep. Love it. Appreciate the effort.
Yep.
John?
Yeah, I'm also in favor of this project and the application. I think that, relatively speaking, it's short money and has a huge impact on our community, and part of Easton's goals of bringing farming back into our community. This brings, many things: friendship, again, gardening, open space. I mean, this has just got win-win all over it. And again, not to disrespect this amount, but short money in comparison to some of the applications that come before us. So again, I'm 100% for this.
Sure. Makes sense. Al, anything that you'd like to discuss, or Dennis?
No, I'm good. Sounds good to me.
Couldn't agree more. So I agree. So with that, I would take a motion to recommend to the applicant for this letter of interest that they proceed forward with a draft application. I don't know if we need an official motion, so it's just going through the process, but I think we've all indicated our approval, so I see no issue or harm with that. So anybody would like to make a motion?
So moved.
Sheedy,
Second,
Al, around the horn, Al,
Benson, I.
John,
Cusco, aye.
Dennis,
Sheedy, aye.
and Tom is an aye.
And I'm recusing myself.
And Ed has recused himself. Steph, Wayne, if in the interim before our next meeting, you want to just do some research and make sure that we didn't just lose quorum, and if so, if we did, just let's put it on the next meeting, and I'm sure we can very quickly handle this item, given the explanations we've just had.
I've already added it to my list to talk with Jay about when he's in the office next week.
Sweet, perfect. Next up, hi Ian, by the way, great to have you. I think we have one more item before we get to the library, so your timing is perfect and spot on. Good to see you again. So the next item, letter of interest that we've received is the CPA application. The Easton Conservation Commission is reaching out. The amount requested is $70,000 for conservation land wayfinding sign replacement. Non-CPA funds and sources would be $10,000. The total project cost therefore would be $80,000. Let me take a look. Conservation property signs are in serious disrepair. Bristol Aggie student Aiden Thomas evaluated all conservation signs and created a spreadsheet of the signs. As part of the town's wayfinding project, we would like to replace all of our signs, but there is consistent signage. Question I have, Jen, if it's okay, could you just add some color on kind of the importance of the signs, the type of construction and quality of the signs, how long they might last, and all the other good stuff?
Sure, thank you. So we're looking to do the exact same signs that they already have for the rest of the town. So it is the same local contractor sign design out of Brockton, exact same signs, just so that is consistent and cohesive throughout the town. It's a great interdepartmental project. And I do have a couple of two quick slides if you want to see the signs, the old signs that are falling down in need of repair. I could show you those.
Sure. Do you folks want to see them?
Yes.
All right, this might take 1 minute because I think you're not seeing the right thing, are you?
No,
No, we see your
Okay.
computer listing. The good news is you have plenty of free storage, so that's really great news.
I have everything open. But it's not showing up on this. All right, this may take me a minute here. Go. Okay, can you see the signs, or is it still my list of files?
Now we're looking at
It was-
autoplay.
Jen,
It almost looks like it's corrupt.
Okay. I think this time it will work.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
You can see the signs.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so they're in pretty bad shape. You can barely read them. They're rotting away. They're falling off of the posts. That's just two of them. And then the most recent one that's been replaced at the town forest. So all the signs will look like the bottom. And then whatever additional information we need, the Conservation Commission will create a metal sign to go on a kiosk, and it'll include the Conservation Commission's logos as well. So there'll be an additional space for more information, rules and regulations, signs about hunting, whatever else, ticks, anything else we need to put up there. But the main sign will look like the bottom one, like all of the other signs in town that are going up right now.
John?
Yeah, just a couple of questions, Janet. I've been noticing this for a long time. They've been pretty bad, and I'm saying, why can't the conservation come up with some money? And I think we all know the answer, budgets are tight. I have noticed, though, some of them have been replaced already. Wooden ones, like these.
Yes, as I understand it, that was part of a 2019 CPA grant.
Okay, so now my next question is how many? And you said, just to go back, it's 80,000 for the complete to do
Correct.
them all?
Correct.
And
We have an
what's-
estimate from Sign Design out of Brockton. They're saying it is 4,000 per sign. And we have approximately 20 signs. And so the Conservation Commission has allocated $10,000 toward that project.
And if I believe the signs that we have now that are around town, that was paid, if somebody can confirm that with me, Stephanie, was that paid through a grant?
It was paid MassWorks grant for Main Street.
And that was about 300,000, is that correct?
The cost of those signs, yes.
Okay. So does any of this fall under capital planning also? I'm just trying to see where this can be weaved in from other accounts just besides CPC. So if it wasn't, I always say, ask the question, now obviously this falls under CPC guidelines, but if it didn't, where would the funding come for something like this? Would it be a capital planning item? Good question.
Could go
I-
under
I-
capital.
I don't know. I don't know if if there's a like a minimum amount that qualifies as capital, and where I don't know.
Okay,
John.
all right.
I don't know the answer if this would qualify as a capital improvement.
And then what about the pricing / bids on this? So you're saying it's 4,000. I mean, are we bound to this because they already started with all the signs in the community? I'm assuming there must have been 2 or 3 bids.
They were the lowest bidder for the overall wayfinding sign project.
Okay. So you're asking again for 70,000, conservation's kicked in 10, is that correct?
Correct.
I think, by the way, the signs look great. They've upped our community. Although most people don't realize, I've heard a lot of social media saying, oh my God, I can't believe the town doesn't have this extra money. How can they be doing this? Again, all they have to do is educate themselves and find out that it didn't cost us.
I've been hearing that one of our Richardson buildings was left off of all the signs, but that's maybe just.
I've been hearing the same thing.
Could I make one recommendation? Yeah, there's no guarantee here, but I noticed some of the signs do have descriptive language, and I know that the sign on Mill Street is inaccurate because we were almost sued over that, and the stupid local historian that wrote it put the imps of Satan working the mill in the wrong location, and he would like an opportunity to change that.
Of course.
Love it.
Can you clarify that, Ed?
Yeah, remember that lady that kept coming back?
I know, I'm just teasing you.
Actually, John, that went over my head. It took me a minute to realize the historian he was referencing.
Yeah.
Although I was
The
part
sign
of that
references
embroilment.
imps of Satan, and the lady didn't like it, and then she proved that the imps were on the other side of Rockland Street, not in front of her house. So, and John Grant wouldn't let us change this. Remember that? He was so
Yep.
stubborn.
Yep.
Anyway, we can rectify that.
Glad you take an opportunity, Ed, righting the past wrongs.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any more questions on this matter, or is it fair to ask for a motion in support of recommending that the applicant proceed forward with the draft application on this, and that the CPC would welcome further engagement on the opportunity?
So
Like it.
moved.
So moved. Second.
He's got you, John, by a hair. Ed's
Yep.
quick. So Ed and John, Al,
Aye.
John,
Ventresco, aye.
Ed,
Aye.
I'm surprised, Ed, by the way, that you didn't recuse yourself, given the fact that you're trying to correct some past wrongs on these signs, but that's a different story. Dennis?
Aye.
And Tom Broussard's an aye as well. Jen, thank you again for this. I think the signs are a great thing, and helping people appreciate all the assets that exist in our town is fantastic. So well done.
Thank you so much, everyone, and it's great to put some faces to all of your names. We've either received emails or phone calls, and it's great to meet you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. Have a great night.
You too.
Next up is a letter of interest that has been received from the Ames Free Library. We have Ian Dunbar joining us as the executive director of the library. The project in question is the restoration of the Ames Free Library roof. Falls under the CPA category of historic preservation. The total estimated project cost is roughly $775,000 to $989,000. The request from the CPA is currently a range of $258,000 to just over $494,000, with the matching funds estimated to be $494,000 to $517,000 from the Ames Free Library capital funds, donations, and grants. The summary is as stated: repair and restoration of the roof of the historic Richardson Library building. But with that, I'll pause, and Ian, I think you could probably add some more color, probably some more detail. And knowing Ed, he's gonna hold you honest to any historical references that you have. So I'll let you have the floor and just give us an understanding of the project.
Yes, thank you. That's why Tim's here as well, to keep me on course, and appreciate any comments from Ed as well. So the roof of the library has been suffering some severe water damage for quite a number of years now. There have done not patch jobs, but focused projects within the last decade and beyond on certain sections of it. You know, the CPA did assist the library with the children's room and the joint connection some years past, which did help some good flooding that was happening in the library, but we still have some areas were related to the original library roof itself. Right now, it's mainly directional rain. Tim knows more about it, but the last couple of days we've just had straight vertical rains, and the library has fared well. But if we get strong winds and the rain comes from the west or the north, we get severe damage that comes from the roof all the way down to the ground floor. And just if you know where to look inside the building, it's quite evident where they are. And our concern right now is we don't know the extent of the damage that might be on the roof itself underneath the tiles. But we do know it has been some time since the main roof has been looked at. The tiles have been, replaced and it's changed. Part of our estimated cost for the project is because we got a quote from Dutel, who had done a fabulous job at the Queeset House roof a few years back as well. Was because we were trying to determine what our options would be for actual historic preservation to match with the original intention of the library. So Dutel quoted us a few options based on the materials. Since we're still doing our research when we submitted this letter of intent, and I apologize for that. We have a fairly good idea right now that we can go for the lower end of the estimate. So the total cost being around like $780,000, with asking the CPA for about $250,000 roughly, given the classics, the library's traditional ask of doing a third, hopefully, which would means we would then match the upper end of it, the $1,600,000 going through there. We thought we weren't actually sure of what the original roof was done with. We assumed some slate. We believe it is now just an existing tile. So it should, and then the research we've done says it is the tile that we have now on both. We're fairly sure, and that what we do now is kind of still keeping with the historical tradition of it.
Sure. And is it, just making sure, is it the whole roof, the entire, all sections?
No, it would just be the original Richardson part of it. So the on the left of that screen there, the west end of the building is the children's edition that was added on. So that roof was done within the last 7 years or so. So that we're not considering it right now. It's just the original Richardson Library building. All that has not been touched, and I actually am not aware, but it's Tim Clefairy. It's been what would you say, Tim, like 56 years or something? It's been a while since it's been done, but yes, it's the original building.
And you're on mute, Tim. You're still on mute, Tim.
Oh.
How's that?
Perfect, gotcha.
That is not original to the building, that tile that's there.
No.
No, we know that, but it was replaced, yeah, maybe 50, 60 years ago, but yeah, I'm not sure where this is going because the original tile was a shark tooth slate, we believe. But we're having a problem. All the drawings from Richardson give great detail, except the roof is a white area or with lines on it. We cannot find any detail to the roof, the original roof. The picture at Roach Brothers Deli shows the original roof with the shark tooth tile. But I'm not sure, funding wise, where the library will end up with this, but it is, I asked that it be put on this agenda because I believe it is an emergency situation here because the water, as Ian mentioned, comes in, whichever way the wind is driven, it comes in the winter on that inside corner between the old building and the new part where the elevator is. Yes, we get ice dams all winter, and that comes down into the stairway, floods the stairway. We have to shut the stairway down. So this is, in my opinion, an emergency situation. That's why I've asked that it be bumped up here, maybe for the fall meeting.
So, I was just gonna literally make that recommendation to the consideration, because right now I think it's not slotted for us to be on the fall meeting. But given Tim's assessment, and I don't think I think we should take that under advisement, because if the longer we wait, it could just be more costly. And is it safe to say we could get it done before the winter comes, Tim?
No,
Ian?
no, that the lead time, I'm not positive what Dutel said. I think it was early next year, early 2024, he would get in.
Yeah, he needed a few months basically just to get matching tile together and ready to go. There is a supplier out in the Midwest that does match the tile in the original in this format that would really be a clean replacement. And they needs the lead time to get it here and ready.
Got it.
Yeah, it's a material. It's stocking the job is what's taking time. So if we end up in next spring, that puts us into next fall and then into next winter for the job. So we would be trying to survive another winter.
As is.
And as Ian says, we can take you around multiple spots and show you where the water has come in and damaged.
Yeah.
And this is, it's some of it's reactive, but the whole job would be proactive, I believe.
Right. And the question I have, speaking to that proactive, we've on the CPC have begun to ask some questions around projects. And so I think one of the questions that CPC members might have is, what is the assessment on the roof for the addition? And where I'm going with it is, if this is coming up in the next 3 to 5 years, and it's a consideration that there should be thought about doing the entire project, then I just would pose that to you folks to help educate us as to the condition of that roof in the back. And if it has plenty of useful life, we're not looking to spend money. We're just trying to be thoughtful of, if now's the right time to do the rest of it, it might just be a thought. That's all. Hopefully CPC members, I framed that the right way.
Absolutely.
I'll speak to that. We did identify a couple of the ridge, not the ridge, the gable ends of this, the triangular end, are capped with granite block. And it's evident that a couple of those blocks have shifted, which creates, there's a mortar joint, you could call it like the grout joint on tile in your bathtub, that in your shower, that it is opened up a little. It allows water in, and then the water goes down and comes out back outside the building further down. So you'll see either staining or what they call efflorescence, which is the white that comes out of mortar in several places. So yes, there are a couple areas. That roof was redone. I believe the south side was redone. I know the south side was redone. The north side was not. But there was, there's always, it's always been continual being worked on, but never a Band-Aid per se. The library's always pursued the job at hand 100%. It's that they never mince on that.
Sure. Ed, you have a question?
Yeah, I would urge the library if there's a specific problem with the gable ends to maybe roll that up in your thing. And I do have a question. One of the controversies of the proposal on the children's wing was the ridge line, and we got talked into using a new method of doing that. And I just want to find out how's that doing? Has there been any leakage there along the ridge line?
No.
Then it was a wonderful thing that we did.
Yes.
I also want to point out that we did have a request from the Congregational Church at the center to replace their roof. And they wanted to use the material other than the original material. And we couldn't do it because we're required to use the Department of the Interior standards and our historic grants. So I would urge the library to double check with the Historical Commission. You can recuse yourself there and make sure that that's okay. It would seem to me that if you've had a fake roof on there for 60 years, that's now the historical roof, and we should be all set. I support this program wholeheartedly and recommend putting it on the fall thing if possible.
I second that.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have I noticed we have a historical restriction with the Mass Historical Society based on some previous work at the library. And it does just describe the roof as it is now in that state of what we have to match with, not saying that this is, true, accurate to what was originally put on there.
If it's on the restriction, it should be good. That's excellent. Yeah. Thanks, Ian.
Awesome. Anybody else have questions, Al or Dennis? I also agree, obviously think that the library is one of the gems of the town asset for everybody, and my family has used it extensively. So with that, I'd take a motion to encourage the applicant to submit a draft application. Definitely please take under consideration the CPC's vocal support of doing the additional steps that might be needed to help waterproof the envelope. Wayne, you're muted, so you'd have to unmute before you make a comment. Go for it.
I did see that. I was waiting to be called on, so you don't hear any background laundry noises. If we're going to hopefully hit the November town meeting, then we need to, I'm sort of backwards planning, like when we need to get the warrant article in. So I think rather than a draft, it would be to submit a final application. If that could be gotten in with like a final budget plan specs, say for September, in a month, and including the mortar repair. Ian, if that's something you think you could do.
Yes, it could be doable. We have a bunch of numbers now, and Tim, as he clearly does, has everything else plotted out that we would need to add on. He's discussed it with the contractor, so they're aware as well. So we should probably be able to get some specs on that for you quickly.
I agree. So in terms of warrant article placement, I would ask Steph if you could make sure you connect with Connor and the select board. Make sure that there isn't any issues with the additional warrant. I can't foresee one, but I think the cause has been articulately provided that this is an emergency. And if we delay much more, it just creates that much more damage. Tim, Ian, I'm assuming this also includes a contingency in these estimates?
Yes.
Perfect. So that's good. So that the amount that you ask for should be encompassing of some contingency so that we can support you folks and not have to worry about falling short on some necessary funds that you might have for the project. We're happy to work with you in the weeks and days to come. in order to review your application. To Wayne's point, this will go from letter of interest to final application review. So we're happy to look at your drafts as you go through it, work with you to support any questions or thoughts. The sooner we get it, the more we can be supportive of it. And then that way put the best presentation for the CPC's consumption at the next meeting. Because I think we do, to Wayne's point, have to have it finalized and voted on at the next meeting in order to give the warrant article development the right time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much.
So yeah, thanks, Tim. Thanks, Ian. So with that, I'll take a motion to recommend the proceeding to final application review for the September meeting. I think, did we have a second and a motion? So moved by John with the finger poke.
Second,
Dennis was the second, super quick. Al,
Benson, aye.
John,
Aye.
Ed,
aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
and Tom Broussard is an aye as well.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you both. Good to see you all.
See you.
Let's see. So I think that takes care of the grant. It takes care of the 2024 town meeting items. So next up, just want to let everybody know we did receive after the deadline, but in receipt, and I think we have the latitude to consider it, a letter of interest from the Oaks Ames Memorial Hall. I have asked them to add some additional color for our consideration, which I hope to be providing us for our next meeting. Just some general details. The letter was relatively general. It was in keeping with previous letters of interest that have been submitted. The key difference was the amount requested was 4 to 5 million, without details supporting what that would be vis-a-vis the previous $10 million ask. So one of the items that I asked for was additional color on what the 4 to 5 million would encompass in this particular application. So I hope that we can get that additional letter of interest enhancement in time for our next meeting in September. Staff Wayne, if you don't mind reaching out to Fred just to let him know and confirm that we would like to make this an item for topic for our September meeting. So we're hopeful to work with and get additional color and some other questions. I also asked, so at our last meeting, which was December of 2022, there was a series of items that were referenced in terms of additional color that the CPC would like to see. So I also asked for an update on those items. So in other words, it shouldn't necessarily be the exact same process as last time. If we made progress before and we're looking for things like a business plan or sales and marketing detail, those were known questions from the last meeting. And so I asked that those also be thoughtful and considered in this letter of interest that's provided, so we can start the process off with more ground being made. John?
Yeah, you hit all the points, Tom, that I was going to actually bring up. The only thing I'd like to add is not only to have the business plan, but the implementation of it. As I've seen multiple times with plans, not necessarily with the hall, but in general, and you don't see these strategic plans or business plans brought forward naturally.
Yeah, there was also a lot
One of the things that we need to be assured of is that the Oak Ames has a 501c3 that is current, because I believe there was some issues previously to them getting reinstated as a 501c3. So there would really be some negative tax implications if that was not up to date.
Yeah, that's a great point, team. So we didn't necessarily get into all of the details of research or conversation points. Al, in the research last year of the applicant and the application, determined that there were periods of time where I think it's an annual filing that needs to be done to maintain one's status, that it had lapsed. Last I was able to ferret out, Al, that they did correct that lapse, but I did ask the question of the applicant as well to help us understand how those won't happen again, because I knew it was one of your questions, and how their business processes have evolved to ensure that oversights like that wouldn't happen in the future.
Exactly.
I think you're right. The losing of that status could be highly problematic. I didn't take it so far as to understand what the complications and implications could be to CPC funding. I'm not sure if it has a direct.
It's on the
impact.
receipt that if they are not a 501c3, I believe that they'll be taxed on that income. And so that the money needed to affect the restorations desired will only get us, a certain percentage of it after
Good point.
tax.
Fair. I appreciate that. And there were state filings that we identified. So I think those have all been current in the last period of time. But to your point, it just raises the question to ensure that the business processes, the ability to execute a project of this size, and then to take it to the next level, John, which I think you're kind of getting at with the business plan and ability to implement and execute is there. So I did ask those questions as well of the applicant so that they, again, could come rather than just a general letter of interest as if we had never had these discussions or talking points. It would be probably a more evolved letter of interest indicating reflection and engagement on the questions that the CPC posed at our last meeting in December. The other item I asked about was an update on board composition. I believe that Suzanne Bump is no longer on the board. And given she made a lengthy speech with additional commitments that were made, I just wanted to make sure that the applicant had a chance to address that as well. So any items or observations that were commitments that were made from the materials that Suzanne distributed to all of us, if you remember, were still supported by the board, and we would have thoughts on that as well. So I just wanted to confirm we did receive a letter of interest for the aforementioned reasons. I've asked the applicant to come back with an enhanced letter of interest that addresses some of the questions the CPC had already raised. And Steph, Wayne, if I could just trouble you to just make sure that the applicant knows I think we have all stated we believe in the asset, we believe in the preservation of it, we believe in the central role that it plays in our community, but we just have thoughts and concerns for a project of this size, which if bonded is a $10 million ask and a $15 million spend, and well over a third, might be getting more of our operational budget each year for the next 20 years. So I think it's appropriate we have a lot of detailed conversations about it. There's the update there. I have no items not reasonably anticipated by the chair. Our next meeting is September 14th. So I appreciate you all confirming your attendance today and that we could make quorum and get some of these items out of the way, continue to make progress. Wayne, could you just give us a pre-read on the next meeting? Sorry to put you on the spot, but just a pre-read on the next meeting for what the items are we'll be talking about. And that way the team can at least start to wrap their head around them and not have to worry about us getting materials to them a few days before. You are muted. I forgot to remind you of that. My bad.
No, you think after several years of Zoom, I would know better, but no. Let me find the timeline that I put together, and that should have that on there. If you'll give me just a moment, I can get to it quite quickly.
Perfect.
And applications and 23 and review timeline. All right, and make it big enough for me to see. So we'd be looking at letters of interest for Thursday, September 14th right now. So according to the timeline would be the final application from the Clifford grant that's no longer relevant since it's been recommended at this point. We'd be looking for Oaks Ames High School baseball field improvements, letter of interest, Keach Field fencing, letter of interest, and Swifts Park construction, letter of interest. You have seen those that were sent out ahead of last month's meeting, all of the letter of interest we got. So you did receive those earlier, and we've not really had changes. Updates to that, of course, would be the final application from the library we would be looking for. So that's and then also the Affordable Housing Trust. So we'd be looking at letters of interest from the Affordable Housing Trust, high school baseball field, Keachfield Fencing, Swiss Park Construction, and a final application from the library.
Perfect. And we may potentially be adding the Oak Sands Memorial Hall. And I think in your conversation, Wayne or Steph, what I would ask is that you also reinforce what we won't do. I think I speak for the CPC, but we won't jam in a $10 million project all in one meeting at the end. So where I'm going with it is I would expect lengthy debate, discourse, and discussion, potential town involvement, and that the application is the letter of interest was already late. Let's make sure the applicant appreciates the importance, given the size of the project, of being timely with the rest of the engagement to come. Otherwise, I'm happy to always have discourse about it, but I just don't think we could be good stewards of the funds and try to jam it in at the very last minute of a project of this size, and it would therefore get pushed another year. And I'm not sure we all want to do that.
I think we need to emphasize transparency on the part of that proponent who has a track record of not providing full details when needed.
Sure. Yeah, it's to the detriment of the asset, candidly. So, perfect. Anybody else have any points or thoughts? Otherwise, as always, appreciate the fun and exciting journey of a meeting that we've been on. I think we learned a little bit about technical rules of how to amend a motion midstream, 3/5 of the vote in. And Ed always being a stand-up gentleman and recusing even if there was a question or a hint of impropriety. So I don't think we need to recuse anybody from motion to adjourn.
Nope. So moved.
Ed?
Second.
That was a unanimous second from, I think, John, Sheedy, and Benson, all in a direct tie, but I'll let the notes reflect whoever somebody wants to pick. Al?
It's fine. Thank you.
John?
Driscoll, aye.
Ed?
Aye.
John? Dennis?
Sheedy, aye.
And Tom is an aye as well. I hope you all enjoy the rest of the summer. When we meet again, school will be in session, and hope you all stay safe and well. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you all.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Night,
Good night,
everybody.
everyone. Be well.
Bye, folks.